Hi, everyone. Thanks so much to the Stanford Healthcare Innovation Lab for having me. I'll get started. I'll start by sharing my screen here. And I'm going to hit play, which means now I won't be able to see anyone. Like I just said, thank you for having me. It's good. It was good to see. I noticed some of my coworkers and colleagues joining. So hi to all of y'all as well. So today I'm going to give a talk. It's a very entry level, very beginner level talk about augmented and virtual reality, and I'll touch a little bit about its impact on the healthcare industry so far. So a little bit about me. I'm Canadian. I'm actually here in Vancouver, Canada right now, visiting some family, and doing this talk for everyone. But I'm normally based in New York City. Right now, I work as a consultant UX design for Sogeti, which is a part of Capgemini network. I've done a bunch of stuff in augmented and virtual reality prior to joining Sogeti. I did my master's degree at NYU's School of Engineering and did it in concentrate on integrated digital media. I then started a startup indie game studio focusing on creating augmented reality enabled tabletop mystery games, where we actually used augmented reality as a component of gameplay that supports a physical gaming product as well as some social media and web-based adventures. And we developed a set of augmented reality detective tools that you could use as a player to do kind of mystery work at like crime scene reconstructions as well as image unscramblers. So we thoughtfully input augmented reality into that kind of usage. Currently, I was a previous participant at the XR hackathon called Reality Hack, and I currently lead their marketing and design efforts when I am not busy at my day job. So today we'll cover an introduction to augmented and virtual reality, some consumer use cases, some enterprise use cases, as well as some usage in the healthcare space. So let's get right into it. You'll see AR, VR used alongside this other term called extended reality, or XR for short. So virtual reality these days has been pioneered by, or has been pushed forward by, primarily by Facebook's Oculus division, though you'll also find other companies like HTC, Sony, and some other enterprise-only and outside of the North America companies like Vario, Pico, and they also produce what is very typical in virtual reality as head-mounted display units or headsets. So they're typically worn over your eyes, and you will be fully immersed in there, and typically comes with a pair of controllers. As I said, you'll be physically immersed in this environment, so your entire reality will be a digital recreation or simulation. Some headsets also offer the ability to use your hands as the controllers, which is kind of cool, in addition to having a physical controller. So some of the there are a lot of VR applications. One of them is definitely on the enterprise side being used a lot for training. On the consumer side, you'll find a lot of entertainment applications. For example, Facebook and Oculus are pushing very heavily into their Oculus platform for gaming and entertainment. And perhaps an unintended side effect is that fitness becomes a VR application as well. Given how intense some of your movement can be in VR, fitness is actually kind of almost like a side benefit to using virtual reality. Next over, we'll switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what augmented reality is. Augmented reality is typically overlaying a digital component into physical space. So here you'll see product visualization. You can like put a set of new dishes and cutlery onto your dining table to even just preview what you're about to buy. A little bit more relatable to healthcare, there have been, while this is a product demo from Microsoft, there have been strides in using augmented reality headsets to be able to do these kinds of medical visualizations. And perhaps in the far future, this is Keiichi Matsuda's hyper reality video, a screenshot from it. Perhaps in the future, if unregulated, we'll see something crazy like this. Hopefully we won't ever get to this point, but if you're interested in this kind of reality, I highly recommend you check out Keiichi Matsuda's hyper reality video. It's got some interesting things that I think the artist is saying about the future. So what are some of the technologies that are kind of being developed to help enable this growth? 5G is a really big one, and why it's important is because that with the higher data upload and download speeds, you'll be able to quickly download models and any other graphically intensive elements to your space and to view it quicker. So if you're pressing a button, things load so much faster. A model will generate so much quicker. And this is obviously especially important when if the technology you're using relies on having this reliable connection. The cloud is heavily enabling this space as well, being able to store these assets in the cloud and then downloading them via 5G is definitely helping enable this growth, as well as IoT, having all of these assets available to you and having all your devices be able to talk to each other, especially when you're talking about shared presence, watching the same thing in the same room, for example. So how do we get here? This is the hype curve. You'll see it a lot in a lot of new technologies. So this is from Deloitte, and it's a few years old now, from 2019. You see that virtual reality, we're finding more and more viable use cases for them, while AR was in the trough of disillusionment. I would argue that both of these things, virtual reality especially, is further along that slope of enlightenment, and augmented reality is probably just about to enter that slope of enlightenment. There's a lot of industries that are already leading the charge here. From retail to real estate, folks are finding really compelling use cases for augmented and virtual reality technologies. You'll also see that healthcare is definitely on this list, and healthcare has found a lot of usefulness in immersive training, safety, and compliance, as well as treatment. As with many technologies, enterprise usually embraces VR new technologies before consumers do. So we've seen companies like ThyssenKrupp, CAT, IBM, and Opel use, in this example, AR technologies to help with their everyday businesses. So we'll switch gears a little bit and cover a little bit about what folks are doing in augmented and virtual reality for consumers. Gaming is one. If you heard of Pokemon Go, it's hard not to. A few summers ago, it was all the rave. Pokemon Go allowed you to catch Pokemon in real life, where it overlaid the Pokemon into your real world environment. Other games do include like Angry Bird AR, and there are few AR enabled games on the App Store and Google Play Store. Another big use in the consumer space is lenses and filters. From promotional lenses to just cosmetic lenses, there's been a lot of uptick in lens creation as Facebook and Snapchat both have their own lens creation platforms that the community can plug into. Next, we have navigation. Google Maps launched this live view augmented reality enabled walking directions a few months ago, sometime last year. And Apple is poised to do the same to launch AR navigation features in their upcoming iOS 15 release. In VR, gaming is a very big sector market for VR. Here you'll see popular rhythm slashing game Beat Saber, where a bunch of blocks come at you, fly towards you to the beat of the music, and you as the player will have to slice through them. Gaming is not the only thing, however, and there is this program called the Underpresents that have put on numerous shows inside VR where you can actually get a ticket to and witness a live virtual performance. I did say that fitness has become a really big use case, an unintended side effect perhaps of virtual reality, but startups such as YUR have come out with cross-platform fitness tracking solutions that track your energy output in VR as you are going switching between different games and tracking your calorie burn while in playing VR. Next, we'll move over to the enterprise. Like I mentioned earlier, ThyssenKrupp has used augmented reality tech, specifically with the Microsoft HoloLens, to use in assisted repairs. So you have your hands free while someone is talking through the repairs with you. You'll see that done. PTC also sells a suite of visualization tools and work with companies to help in this factor. VR has been used in product development. For example, Toyota does use VR in their car development. They check things from everything from aesthetics to ergonomics while developing cars in VR. There's been a lot of training focused enterprise uses as well. For example, here you'll see 6 Sense Enterprises Incorporated's own VR training platform. This one is a medical related, and you can see some of the procedure notes on the board as well. However, medical is not the only field benefiting from this. There's law enforcement and military are also using training in virtual reality. Here you'll see a screenshot from Street Smarts VR, and they provide training solutions to police and military to train for situations, for different types of situations that they may encounter. For the everyday company, VR can be used and is being used for remote collaboration. So Spatial is a platform that exists across VR devices as well as desktop. So you can and your team can actually collaborate in VR, mimicking real life presence. So we're on to, this is a healthcare innovation lab that we're talking with. So I'm here to share with you a few of the things that I'm seeing in the healthcare space. I'm by no means an expert in this field, but my goal for this section of the presentation is to give you all a better idea of what is going on in the healthcare space and to perhaps inspire you to also start thinking about use cases in the healthcare space. So as I said earlier, these factors are really important in helping enabling XR in healthcare, but one thing I didn't talk about is the cost. As this technology develops, costs of everything from particularly of the headsets that require are coming down, as well as there being more competition and enterprise-focused device offerings that are really spurring innovation in this space. In the healthcare industry, specifically in VR AR, it's forecasted a little bit old. The numbers from 2019 is forecast to hit $7. We're seeing there have been a lot of successes with VR and AR in healthcare. For example, the New York Times a few weeks ago published this article about VR therapy while plunging patients back into trauma have had some very good results by using this kind of VR therapy. Also VR, they do medical training, recently have announced that they are expanding their surgical training specialties, and actually augmented reality was used for the first time in a knee replacement surgery. I think it was late last year or early this year. So some of the use cases do include, for example, 3D visualization. So there have been use cases where, and this is from MetaViz, I believe we're hearing from MetaViz in a later speaker talk as well, where they where from MRI scans they can actually get this 3D model out of it. So your human beings are 3D. It's nice to have these kind of 3D visualizations handy for doctors and surgeons to use in their pre-op. Here's a little GIF from MetaViz's surgical AR suite. You can see scans being pulled out, pulled apart for action. You also have training uses. So here we see a little bit of a video clip from also VR's surgical training. You see by actually enabling this, they're trying to mimic real life situations with a little bit more guided approach. You also have hospitals and departments using 3D visualization and VR for pre-operation prep. So this is a little bit of video clip from Bellinson Hospital's Department of Neurology, and they used VR to help prep for a procedure for a right hemispheric meningioma. There's a lot of use cases outside of enterprise in preventative health and fitness. There's been a big surge in commercial fitness software to help people gamify fitness by basically almost like tricking the brain into doing fitness while also having fun. So you see here, Supernatural is a fitness platform in VR that is doing exactly that. You actually also have a trainer working with you while pre-recorded in each session. And as I said before, YUR also exists in this space as a cross-platform tracking solution. So you don't have to, you can actually track your fitness and fitness progression as you play through any virtual reality experience. So healthcare, there's been a lot of impact in this space, and here are just a few numbers to help get you inspired, perhaps. So there was found to be, in a Harvard Business Review article, 230% improved surgical performance when folks use VR training compared to traditional training methods. On average, procedures were able to be completed 29% faster when trained in VR, when the user is trained in VR versus traditional training methods. Also, participants are 6 times less likely to make a mistake during the procedure if they were trained in VR. And there's been up to 80% better retention of skills after a year after your VR training. So I hope this had spurred, as you can see, like these numbers are great. It not only serves well for the healthcare industries, but for other industries as well. So I just want to leave you all with a question, perhaps, like how might we utilize XR to spur innovation in order to help better equip healthcare professionals? I hope this has been helpful for you. I had a lot of fun giving this talk. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for preparing this talk for us. And I love that you ended the talk with a how might we question, like a designer do. Yeah, this is very helpful. Yeah, and so everyone who have questions in the chat, please leave your questions in the chat. And I was actually wondering for you, Brian, because you have done so much work for this. So what is the most exciting thing for you in XR in the near future, so like 5 to 10 years?
Oh, 5 to 10 years, man. I always get this 5 to 10 year question, and it always intrigues me because I think sometimes we're wrong, sometimes we're way off, and sometimes we're a little too conservative with our estimates. But I think for me is we're starting to see, for me from a consumer perspective, I think it's going to be really exciting to see companies start taking augmented reality and putting them into a more fashionable eyewear package. I know Snapchat actually, for those of you not familiar, Snapchat's parent company Snap developed these glasses called spectacles, very creative names. And what they have are cameras in the sunglasses, and it lets you record snaps for Snapchat. They've actually recently been expanding, and they now have a pair of glasses, a pair of spectacles, not available to the general public, only to creators right now, but they've actually got screens in the lenses, so it actually lets you interact with augmented reality objects. So we're starting to see that. I think that's a really exciting thing. I personally don't think it's going to be something that everyone's going to be wearing daily. But for me, that's personally what I'm excited to see the development in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have a question in the chat now. I think Anthony is asking, I'm curious if you could speak to the possible environmental costs and benefits of XR, such as using too much electricity can potentially help reduce nature.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I can't speak too much about the environmental costs and benefits of XR. You'll definitely have more electricity usage in some aspects, but I also think that depending on what kind of training you're doing, it could also have a positive environmental aspect, right? I mentioned Sixth Sense earlier in my presentation. I went to Augmented World Expo a few years ago and were able to try some of their training programs. They also do training for welding. And I tried also a training for painting car doors. So they actually had a weighted spray can controller. And I was in the headset training on how to like spray a car door with paint. So I think there are, for example, like you're also reducing, in those examples, you're reducing material and space costs when you can actually just do all of that in an office somewhere. So you're reducing a bunch of costs in other places. I'm not going to say everything is going to be entirely positive, but for some companies investing in these technologies, that is perhaps the fact that you can do the same training with less space and less money, I think is already compelling for a lot of people. Could it help rebuild nature? There's been a lot of talks in the XR space about VR as an empathy machine, where some things have been found to, if you experience it in VR, you as a person are likely to generate more empathy from it. I can say neither here or there nor there, but I think it could possibly work. And if there are experiences that help immerse folks in this, it's very possible that a side effect of it or a result of it is that people are more environmentally aware. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. I am muted, sorry. My coworker have a next one question for you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Brian. That was great. It was really informative, and we appreciate your efforts on this. Asher has a question for you as well. He was asking if the numbers that you presented, I believe from the Harvard Business Review, if you know if they're representative of more of an older, more practiced physician, or if it's, you know, a younger generation where they're used to video games and kind of being in that virtual environment, if you had any feel for that.
Yeah, I'm actually not quite sure. I want to say that it was most likely younger. When I was going through these articles, I think I remember the dean of a school. So I'm not gonna say, don't quote me on that exactly, but I recall these details, but I can't say one way or the other. However, it is possible that the younger generation will have a bias for it, being exposed to more video game and generally being a little bit more friendly with technology. It's very possible. But one thing I have learned through my UX and product career is that don't underestimate you know, your parents, sometimes they're a lot better with technology than we realize.
This was actually a really interesting fact to me as well, because my background, I had a little experience with dental school, not in dental school, but as a dental assistant. And I know there's so much work that's been done on typodonts and just mannequins and getting that motor movement control and practicing. So to apply that to a more surgical perspective and get that muscle memory, I think is something that's really, really an interesting application for physicians and medical students moving forward. So that was something I wasn't aware of, and it's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's great about that is when you're practicing surgeries or any medical procedure on like a cadaver or something, there's like materials and space costs associated, right? So it's actually, in some ways, it's like better if you can just like pop on the headset whenever you want, do the surgery procedure as many times as you want in the same day, and you're not wasting any additional resources and materials. So yeah, there is that.
And with all the remote environments, great to do it from wherever you want. You could be in your bedroom sitting there doing it in your sweats, as so many of us have been working, I think. I think we have another question in the chat. Let me check here. So Alexandros asked, what inspired you to get involved in the AR VR space in the first place? And if you could build anything on XR healthcare space, what would that be?
What inspired me? So I actually have always been like kind of like a tech person. I'm always interested in what Apple and Google are doing and releasing for their devices in a consumer use case. And when I first heard of VR back when Oculus was developed, before they were acquired by Facebook, before they even released anything to the general public, I've always been fascinated by like, wow, wouldn't this be really cool if we could, you know, get my hands on this one day. So I've always had a fascination with how technology, especially, can be used in our lives, and how we should, you know, make technology work for us. So my interest in AR and VR really was very naturally leading me in that direction. And then I was very lucky to be able to actually work on the work. I was able to take classes in augmented and virtual reality when I went to NYU, and was able to also kind of develop some of my skill set that way. And if I could build anything for the XR healthcare space, what would that be? That's a good one. I think for me, I would actually be very interested in building like seated experience, maybe not necessarily experience that you can move around, for people that are in hospitals. So a little bit more like patient care centric, and you know, especially if you're in a hospital because you're there, you need some procedure, you're there for observation, or you're sick, or you're recovering. Might be good to escape from the hospital, even if just for an hour in a virtual space. So if I could build anything, I think it would be something patient facing.
That gave me an interesting point too. Maybe something physical therapy related. I know sometimes it can be hard to get the motivation yourself sitting around at home. So maybe something to inspire patients to do their own exercises could also be interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see. Any user cases where AR can empower people on daily use cases where that will reduce hospital and doctor visits?
I think any use cases that we want people to take, reduce the hospital and doctor visits, could come from the form of like preventative health. I did mention like there's a bunch of new VR applications dedicated to specifically that's fitness oriented, that helps people kind of like forget that they're exercising because they're too busy having fun. I think it's a little bit more challenging in the augmented reality side, mostly because there's no devices that really make that use case really seamless, because primarily is phone driven. I think everyone here probably has an augmented reality capable device, but it gets very tiring holding a phone up for very long. So I know if you played Pokemon Go and you've tried the AR stuff, you probably like tried it once and then you're like, actually like my arm's tired, you know, like turn it off. So I think in the AR space, it's a little bit more difficult. I don't think we are there yet, but I think some of the factors that could drive that will actually require us to perhaps in a different form factor, one that does not quite exist yet. That's my opinion.
We have a fun question. What VR games have you played?
Ooh, so many. I think I have played Supernatural. I mentioned it, and my colleague Yusra also mentioned it in the chat. I played Beat Saber. I played this other game. Is also a music game. It's called O Shape, and this one's kind of funny. This one has walls coming at you in VR, but there's a person cut out, so you have to like make the shape. So if you've seen like the Japanese Tetris game show videos, it's very similar to that. But it's set to music and it's actually quite fun. It's very active as well, and definitely gets you moving. I've played a lot of puzzle games in VR because we're in a pandemic, so I haven't been able to go to escape rooms, which are a lot of fun for me. So there's actually a lot of like puzzle, almost like escape room type experiences in VR that are a lot of fun, and that I love. And there are a few relaxing experiences too. I played a game called Half and Half. It's a multiplayer game or collection of experiences, and you can like hang out with some of your friends. And there's one where you just literally swim around in an ocean with your friends. And that can be quite relaxing because you're all like floating through the ocean and just like talking to each other. Believe it or not, Tetris has a VR game. It's actually very relaxing because you're surrounded by a different environment and you're playing Tetris. It's really quite interesting. Yeah, I could probably go on and on a little bit, but I think those are like kind of like my top experiences.
The one Tetris game sounds like a little bit of yoga. You have to get mobile to fit in the puzzle piece yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a predetermined amount of poses, but you know, it also like on the easier levels, there's fewer walls, so you have more time to like get into that position. And then the harder levels, you know, the squats are being introduced, and you have to go from like a squat to a standing position really quickly, and it can be very fun and intense as well.
It sounds like it. I did see that I missed one question up top. Yusra said that when they're using the headset, they found with the high intensity workout, the lenses tend to get foggy, and then it's also a little heavy just wearing it. They were wondering if there's been any like improvements or plans to, you know, change the product design to kind of facilitate the user a little bit easier, especially when you're doing anything high impact.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, I think that's really great. And I have also myself criticized, you know, Facebook and Oculus for not having some sort of swappable insert for their headsets to accommodate for this use case. But the reality is, I think they've flooded the market with this new headset, the Oculus Quest 2, which sells for $199, $299. It's come down a lot in price since like VR headsets were first made in mainstream a few years ago. But I think as a result of putting out a cheaper headset, Facebook has definitely cut corners on places like that. The weight has come down, and I think there is improvement to have it come down some more. But in the meantime, what folks have found is if you can get a battery pack and strap it to the back of your headset, it actually counterbalances the front heavy part of the headset, so it actually feels much more balanced on your head. And the sweaty part, there are a few different companies that sell improved foam interfaces for your headset, and some of them actually have like have a little bit more space between the lens and the foam insert to allow for a little ventilation. All of these will be solved, I'm sure, in future iterations. But in the meantime, there's third-party accessory makers and that are probably filling the gap where the mainstream folks are not.